Nigerians in the diaspora. And we do not tell them that they are not resident in Nigeria. Abike Dabri, a very right honorable member of this House, superintends over that, and will handle the issues of Nigerians as long as they are Nigerian citizens, even in diaspora. So these are still Nigerian citizens with Nigerian passports who are sending a petition.
Maybe I will refer you to the functions of the Committee on Diaspora. If you go through that one, it has nothing relevant to what you are now presenting.
No, I'm not even talking about the committee. I'm saying
no. You are referring me to so that I will understand. Yes, we agree that even in the House here we have the diaspora committee.
Your concern
that is for excuse me. That is for them if they have issues for us to solve it for them. But out there, at their own comfort, I think they are not. They don't have this. The position.
So why do we bother about Nigerians in the diaspora then? Because why do we bother? Because we have a diaspora commission.
Please, I will not allow that petition to take
Honorable Magbila, be guided.
Please.
Honorable Magbila, be guided.
I'm not convinced that we need to take that petition.
Whip.
Honorable Magbila, be guided.
About what, Whip, sir?
Thank you.
Oh dear, it was quite a session at the House of Representatives, as you can see there. And that's some backstory to our next conversation this morning. And joining us to sort of give more light on that is Honorable Mark Wheeler, whom you saw in that video. He's a member of the House of Representatives from Benue State. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program. So this video has circulated quite well. Thank you. It's good to have you. And as you'd expect, lots of reactions. But regarding the backstory, because, I mean, looking at a statement from the Office of the Deputy Speaker, it says that, you know, the coverage and reportage of the incident have mostly been doctored, slanted, and bent to give political and ethnic coloration to an event that was otherwise strictly based on rules of parliamentary procedure. So that's the perspective of the Speaker. If you could, or Deputy Speaker, so please give us the context, really. What exactly happened?
Okay, thank you very much and good morning once again. You can see that the video has been played completely. So I do not have anything personal against the Deputy Speaker, but I do not see how his response in that press statement is tenable. You can see very clearly no aspect of the video was doctored. His words were taken verbatim. So it is obvious from that exchange that he appeared to have some premeditated bias or angst against the presentation of that petition. And obviously you can see from the video that I was flustered because, unfortunately for me, I did not even have our rule book with me at the time, because our rule book, which I hope you are privy to, very clearly indicates that a petition stands submitted. What that means, and I can read that portion of the rule book to you if we have the time, what that means is once a petition is brought on the floor, it is immediately submitted for forwarding to the Committee on Public Petitions. The presiding officer, contrary to what the Deputy Speaker said, that he has to be convinced, there's no provision like that in our law for him to be convinced about a petition, because that is a very significant aspect of our representation as members of the House of Representatives, to be able to provide that avenue for members of our constituents and other Nigerians to voice their displeasure or concerns about any issue. So it's important for me to begin to address the Speaker's response. I do not think he looked at that response before it was published, because there are certain aspects of it that I am completely bewildered about, like this aspect about saying it was slanted and doctored. You can see the video, it was very clear, nothing about it was doctored. So it is important that we begin to highlight the issues of law. Our standing orders make it very clear how petitions should be handled.
Okay.
They are submitted. The presiding officer doesn't argue about it. He receives it and forwards it to the House Committee on Public Petitions. Then when it has to do with the issue of diaspora, let me address a few issues very quickly. Even when it has to do with dual citizenship, our Constitution recognizes and permits dual citizenship. It only affects you when you want to seek elective office. So even if it is from dual citizenship bearing citizens of our country abroad, there's nothing in our laws that prevents them from expressing themselves about issues concerning their countrymen. And then obviously also when he talked about the issue of CAC, I referred him to section 40, which says we have a freedom of association as a fundamental human rights, whether or not you are registered. But to even put that in the right perspective, this association, if that was even a concern to him, is also registered with the CAC under the umbrella body Mzotiv. So these are things I just wanted to put in the right context before we go on to the fact that in his, just very briefly, sorry, in his comments, you will see he talked about he's not convinced that somebody in America should be presenting an issue in Nigeria about issues happening in Nigeria. That is a clear statement. That is an affront to our compatriots in the diaspora. These are his words, not mine.
Just to be clear, do Nigerians in diaspora have a right to petition the House of Representatives or not?
Absolutely, they do. Absolutely. It is their country. It is their parliament. They have absolutely unalienable rights to present a petition on the floor of either chamber of the National Assembly.
So if this petition was not received, it would imply that that right was trampled upon.
Yes, which is why I'll be resubmitting the petition again next week when I come back to the country, because I believe my privilege has been breached, the privilege of my people, the TIV Union, my constituents, and the privilege of Nigerians in diaspora has been breached by that occurrence. So I will be representing that petition again when I return to Nigeria next week.
You know, we'll talk about the response of Nigerians in diaspora and some of the legalities to this. But regarding the petition, what is the content really?
Okay, now the petition specifically has to do with the issue of, in this particular instance, the TIV people who have been, the TIV people not just in Benue, but displaced TIV people across Benue, Nasarawa, and Taraba states who have been displaced from their ancestral lands by incessant herdsmen attacks and other unrests within the communities in those areas. That's specifically what the issue was. And it is hinged on the fact that in May 2018, the vice president very clearly made a pronouncement about the availability of 10 billion naira for the resettlement of IDPs in Benue and other parts of the country. Until date, not one single kobo of that money has been made available. Our people are languishing in IDP camps, unable to feed themselves. The children are not going to school for several years now. They're living in very squalid and inhuman conditions. And the federal government appears to be playing the ostrich with regards to this issue. So that is fundamentally what this petition was about against the federal government.
Well, we'll come to that, particular case, but just for a moment, let me take you back to the rule book that you quoted earlier. Correct me if I'm wrong, but there is a section of your rule book in the House of Representatives, this ninth house, that says, under petition, Rule 4 says, all petitions shall be ordered without question, being put to be laid upon the table. Such petitions shall stand referred to the Committee on Public Petitions. But I heard the Deputy Speaker chairing that meeting say that if you look at it properly, he would say, with the permission of the Speaker. Is there any particular rule that makes that, that adds that phrase to it or clause to it?
Well, you have the rules right in front of you, and you have just read exactly, precisely what the rule book says. So there's absolutely no provision in that rule that says the presiding officer needs to be, in the way he put it, satisfied about his presentation. It just says it stands laid. That means when you lay it, there's no debate, there's no consideration. it is just referred to the Committee on Public Petitions without any provision for the presiding officer to decide whether or not he is satisfied. The House on Public Petitions will look at the petition and see if it meets the criteria very lucidly and very eloquently articulated in that section of the law. And that petition, which I believe I have provided you a copy of, met every aspect of the requirement of the petition.
Well, one other thing that my colleague Kaude raised earlier is about the substance of the issue at hand, which is the petition from the thieves in America. One wonders why it has taken so long. From information available from that very petition itself, the association dated back to 2013. Even before this government came into office in 2015. So one wonders what have the successive state governments done to take on this issue so it doesn't get to 2021. That's quite some time, wouldn't you say?
Yes, the specific aspect that dated back to 2013 has to do with issues in neighboring states around Benue where Tiv people also are domiciled in Taraba, in Nasarawa. These are issues of citizenship. So these are issues that the governments have been engaging with their colleagues, fellow governors, to resolve. Very recently, the current governor, Governor Simon Otom, held a meeting with the Taraba state governor in Abuja, where I was in attendance, to try to resolve the issues with what is seemingly the attempt by those in Taraba who consider themselves to be more indigenous than the Tiv people who have been there for centuries. So those are the specific issues. The issues that have to do with herdsmen, you and I know, came to a head when this administration was in government. So it is good to put the issues in the right context. So engagements have been ongoing. The governors of concerned states have been interfacing. The people have been going back and forth over their acceptability by those who think they're more indigenous in those locations.
So now, if from your reference of what the vice president has said, nothing has happened, who should be the one to execute or put teeth to the words of the vice president or the pronouncement of the vice president that you referenced earlier?
Well, I think it will be two-pronged. First of all, the president himself, who I believe should be intimated from the fallout of this whole incident about the need to immediately uphold the words of his vice president, who was speaking on behalf of his administration. So I'm using this medium to call on the president himself to immediately look at the implementation and the release of these funds as was promised. We don't want to assume that it was just playing lip service to the situation and they didn't really consider those of us in this predicament as being important enough to honor their statement. And secondly, that is why the petition was referred to the House of Representatives, a part of the legislature that oversees the executive. Of course, we have been having incidents of the executive not honoring our resolutions, but it will be important for us as the fulcrum of a democracy, without which obviously there'll be no democracy, to be seen to have done our part, to have made a definitive statement in this regard, and then let the onus now be on the executive whether or not they honor our resolution as a legislature. So that's why I'm saying, so it also, is part of our responsibility to take a stand on it, send a resolution and a decision of the committee to the executive for implementation. That's why I said it's a two-pronged approach. The president doesn't need to be cajoled. It's a statement already made by his deputy, by his vice. And of course, we in the legislature should also do our part and rise to the occasion. This is an issue that very soon will be the cry of other parts of this nation. You can see what's happening with the level of influx of these herdsmen in other parts of the country. When we were shouting, when the governor of Benue State Otum was shouting about this several years ago, other parts of Nigeria, with all due respect, appeared to be playing the ostrich. Now it has come home to roost. Right. So let us not all wait till the IDP condition also becomes unbearable in other parts of the country before we start to address the issue.
You know, Honorable, I'm quite worried that this is an indication of something even much deeper, because looking at the content of the petition that refers to Nigerians who, as a result of the attack on their homesteads and farmlands by herdsmen, have been rendered homeless in the past few years and, as you said, are stranded in refugee camps. And this is a reflection of what we have seen as the farmer-herder clashes over time, which has been a very touchy subject, security-wise, politically speaking. And now we're seeing this play out in some sense at the House of Representatives. Are you worried that this might split the House across ethnic lines?
Yes, of course. It's a source of concern because you will know that the conspiracy theorists have already begun to draw conclusions to the fact that the Deputy Speaker, with no desire to even hear the essence of the petition, perhaps maybe because he is of Fulani extraction, was only upset about the mention of thief people complaining about issues. Now, note very clearly, I'm not saying, and I'm not alluding to that fact, I'm just saying that is the conspiracy theory making the rounds. I'm just referring to it. And so you see, as members of the National Assembly at that level of leadership, we should be the one to espouse the spirit of unity and to be detribalized in the way we approach issues. So that's why I personally feel aggrieved at the actions of my colleague, the Deputy Speaker. He's not my boss. He's only a first amongst equals. We just elected them to lead us. The manner in which he attempted to shut me down when I was trying to do my statutory responsibility of representing my people has upset me. I am asking on behalf of my people an apology, an unequivocal apology from the Deputy Speaker to me as his colleague, to the TIV nation, and to Nigerians in diaspora who he seemed to have an issue against, because it is clear in his statements. It's not doctored, it's not slanted. The video is very articulate and very clear when he talks about how can you know what is happening in Nigeria because you're in America. That, I think, is out of line and totally does not show the spirit of oneness that we promote. We should even be giving our compatriots abroad an opportunity to vote. This is what happens in other climes. So you can understand the sentiments that this issue has raised. And fundamentally, let's not lose sight of the issues here, like you so very correctly mentioned. The plight of our people who are unable to go back to their lands, who are unable to fend for themselves, and no intervention has been coming from the federal government in any manner. And it's a concern to us when NEMA, on the contrary, in Borno State, I don't know whether they consider Boko Haram to be of more importance, when the herdsmen have been rated amongst the top 4 terrorist groups globally. But you will see that NEMA intervenes daily and monthly to the same IDPs that are citizens of this country in Borno State, but other parts of the country, this intervention is not being done. We cannot begin to deny nepotistic inclinations and influences if these things are happening blatantly before our eyes. And these are things that we will not condone and we do not appreciate.
Well,
it should
Honorable,
immediately...
Well, if you say you expect an apology, it will seem that the Deputy Speaker will need to release another statement aside this one, which was released just right after the event. But, I mean, looking at the dailies, you would hear reports about Nigerians in diaspora saying that they might withhold remittances as a result of this. Is that option really on the table?
Well, I will not hold brief for them, but of course they are outraged by statements of somebody at that level in our legislature, in their legislature. So obviously it is something that is within their powers to do if they come together as a group. We're appealing to them to not do so for the sake of our country. You can see their contribution to the GDP of this nation, second only, and in some instances, even more than the contribution of oil to our GDP. So obviously it is something that's within their right and their powers to do. But I think it will be important for us all to appeal to them. And they are also waiting for that apology. So it also behoves on my colleague to do the needful. In his statement, it was unnecessarily defensive, and it further only complicated issues. That statement, like I said, he probably didn't read it because it is not tenable. And in that statement, why I'm also unhappy, he tried to allude to the fact that he was trying to correct me. Correct me about what? With all due respect and with every sense of humility. Some of us are Ivy League educated. I know the provisions of the law with regards to the presentation of petitions, and nothing was done out of line. Unfortunately, it was the Deputy Speaker who erred in his own inability to have remembered the provisions of our standing orders, and especially the constitutional provisions that protect the fundamental human rights of Nigerians in Nigeria and in diaspora.
Right. Just to say, we did reach out to the Deputy Speaker for some representation, and, well, we didn't have it. Hopefully, we'll get that. But I would like to thank you so much, Honorable Mark Miller, for shedding more light on this, and we wish you the very best in the days ahead.
Thank you very much. The pleasure is all mine.
All right. Your contributions to this program is next. Just before we say our goodbyes, we'll begin with this one from Professor Inakena, who says, it's a travesty for the acting speaker to disprove and disperse views of people like us in diaspora, irrespective of the color of our passports. Insofar as we are Nigerians, it's obfuscating and pernicious to turn down a legitimate observation by Nigerians in diaspora.
Oh, you had to get Prof. using those terms.
Yes, he is a prof.
Oh dear. Take a look at Henry's tweet. I think that's next, saying that let science lead regarding the AstraZeneca vaccine and blood clots. The Caucasians, that's Europeans and white Americans, are known to have 3 to 8% prevalence of factor V-laden mutations, which disposes them to blood clots than other populations. Blood clots have known prophylactic and treatment parameters. He ends by saying, calm down, please.
And this next one is also about the same vaccine. Says a lot of Nigerians purge after eating beans, and after taking malaria medication, they feel feverish. Can we please ban them also because of the side effects?
You know, I had a good laugh reading that one. Believe me, some people are not banning beans anytime soon. But to this one, Atia Deleke says the beauty of science is the presence of different schools of thoughts. A very engaging interaction between Professor Adeye and Professor Njemanze. My thoughts, he says, I will rather risk 0.00002 chance of getting adverse effects of serious concern than zero protection.
So would I guess. Oluwale says in this next one, if countries in Europe with more deaths and advanced technology should be more concerned, that should be more concerned can halt the vaccines, what should be our reason for not temporarily halting? They have 1 million deaths for a single Nigerian death for COVID-19.
Let's take this final one. Nigerians, from Alexandra, by the way, Nigerians may not have the numbers others do, but they travel and mingle with persons in countries that have suffered from this disease and can spread to those populations.
Definitely genuine concerns. Well, you can, of course, express yours as well on our Twitter thread as the day goes on. But thank you so much for watching today and have a wonderful day. I'm Ayo Makinde.
I'm Kayode Kikulu. We appreciate your time. To have a great day.